Hello and welcome back to my channel. Today I'll be giving you a first look into ScourgeBringer. ScourgeBringer is a fast-paced roguelike platformer developed by Flying Oak Games. You play as Kyra, one of the deadliest warriors of her clan. She must slash her way through unknown territory to possibly discover the redemption of humanity. Now, this being a roguelike story, it isn't the main attraction, but I did appreciate them including some lore. So let's talk about the gameplay. The game starts you off in a training program against various flying robots. It's here where you learn how to dash, jump, attack. Now this game is fast. I've played a lot of roguelikes, and this has them all beat in terms of speed. With the sheer variety of moves you have at your disposal, stringing together combos comes naturally, and it looks insanely cool. As enemies attack you, you have the opportunity to stun them using your heavy attack. Once stunned, enemies will stay in place while you unleash a flurry of attacks, bouncing from one enemy to the other. It was this fluidity that kept me hooked while I was playing. Speaking of enemies, there's a nice variety of monsters to fight, and it keeps things fresh in terms of enemy attacks and knowing when to stun them. Let's talk about level design for a second. Flying Oak Games did a really good job of pairing the level structure with the fast-paced gameplay. Each room is randomized, but they're also carved in a way that there will never be any random blocks in the way to break your flow. The different biomes in the game also brought their own unique enemies. For example, in the ice zone, you'll be clashing with various icicles that fall to the floor and explode, or fighting off the toxic bees that explode into lethal gas in the game's third dungeon. Not to mention the stage hazards. Each level has certain rooms filled with spikes, toxic gas, and other things to keep you on your toes. I'd often be fighting and take damage from seemingly nowhere until I realized I was standing on a bunch of sharp spikes. As for progression, it follows the typical roguelike formula of finding a boss room and fighting it to progress to the next level. However, ScourgeBringer does it a little differently. In order to get to the boss, you need to find and fight the mini-boss of the floor. Now, after a couple of runs, these mini-bosses don't really hold much threat, but there is a learning curve in terms of learning attack patterns and making sure you have enough HP for the actual boss. Apart from these two rooms, there's also a shop that you can use your blood points to gain upgrades for that run. Stuff like sword damage, different range weapons, and even health upgrades. Then there's the blood altars. There's one on every floor, and they grant you some significant upgrades to help you in your adventure. So, what happens when you die? Well, in typical roguelike fashion, you're brought back to the hub world, in this case the chiming tree, and you're able to use the currency you got during your run to unlock upgrades in the skill tree. These upgrades seem fairly simple at first, but some of them drastically increase the overall flow of the game. For example, there's a skill which allows your strong attack to reflect bullets back at the attacker. Now for some boss fights, this skill is extremely helpful. Other skills include gaining access to combo meter and unlocking the fury attack, which lets you unleash a powerful attack on multiple enemies at once. Taking all these things into consideration, ScourgeBringer is a tough game. My first couple of runs were just button mashing and hoping for the best. But I soon learned that in order for me to make any kind of progression, I'd need to think about my next move. And that's what hooked me. Learning the bosses, attack patterns, and knowing when to stun is so satisfying. You know what else is satisfying? The sound design. While you're freely exploring, nothing much is happening, but as soon as you engage in combat, the heavy metal track starts to kick in. This, combined with the sounds of steel clashing and bullets flying everywhere, makes ScourgeBringer sound just as good as it feels to play. The game is currently in early access on Steam, and the developers seem dedicated to providing much more content up until its full release. That being said, ScourgeBringer has to be one of the most polished early access titles I've played in a while, and there are dozens of hours of content in its current state. The game came as a nice surprise, and I'm looking forward to seeing what awesome content the folks over at Flying Oak Games can add to it over the rest of the year. If you're a fan of roguelikes, don't skip out on this one. And if you enjoyed the video, make sure to like and subscribe to stay updated on future videos like this. And thanks so much for watching.